Most Venerable Professor Dr. Prakupalat Panya Warawat, Director of International Buddhist Studies College, who will be delivering the welcome speech to all the distinguished guests and participants here. And by 9:30 a.m., we'll be having our first panel discussions on mindfulness practice in the time of crisis by following scholars, including Professor Dr. Huang Zhu Nun, Professor, College of Buddhism, and Dean, Academic Affairs, Bangkok University, South Korea. He's already here in this conference room. Second, we have Professor Dr. Frank J. Hoffman, Professor of International Buddhist Studies College, who is also here in this meeting room. And third, we have Assistant Professor Dr. Venerable Walmurie Piaratana from Faculty of Buddhism, Chulalongkorn Ratchavidyalaya University. And for this session, we will have our moderator as Miss Nina Kittikun Siri, learning designer and Power Apps developer at Bangkok Bank, who is by my side here. And at 11:30, we'll have a lunch break. Then we'll come back here again at 13:00 p.m. or 1 p.m., the local Thailand time here. And we will have a keynote speech on mindfulness, how mindfulness heals global crisis by Most Venerable Prat Pavanavithet, Longpo Khema Thamo, OBE Akka Maha Sathama Chotika Tacha, Abbot of Wat Pa Santitham, the Forest Hermitage, Spiritual Director of Angulimala, the Buddhist Prison Chaplaincy Chairman of the Theravada Buddhist Sangha in the UK. And he will be delivering his speech online. And we will continue with our second panel discussion on how mindfulness heals global crisis by the following scholars, including Venerable Professor Dr. Jong Duk, the Director, Institute for Buddhist Culture, Dongkuk University, South Korea, on site, and Venerable Shan Papniam, Dharma teacher of Plum Village, Pak Chong, Thailand, on site as well. And also for this session, our moderator will be Ms. Mina Kittikun Siri as well. And by 3 p.m., we will end our today's forum and leading to the closing ceremony by Venerable Dr. Pramaha Vesak Apinantaweti, the Vice Director of International Buddhist Studies College. So on behalf of the organizing committee, once again, I would like to welcome you all, both on site and online, who are watching us live on Facebook Live from IBSE channel. And as we all know that today is the day, the very important day that we gather up here to celebrate, to commemorate one of the important day of Buddhism, that is the International Day of Vesak celebration. And each year, every year we celebrate, and we have been celebrating since 2002 or 3, if I'm not wrong. And every year we come here, gather up here at the Mahachula Longkorn Ratchavidyalaya University in Wang Noi, Ayutthaya, and also here in UNCC, Bangkok, Thailand. And due to the pandemic last 2 years, it was not possible for us to organize this program. However, this year fortunately we have this chance to come back here again and celebrate the Vesak Celebration Day, one of the important day. And on behalf of the Vesak International Day, we also had this wonderful opportunity to gather here on this meeting conference room A and held the second World Mindfulness Forum. Whereas the first World Mindfulness Forum was held in 2009 in MCU. So we're waiting for a few minutes of time. I think we also have the opening ceremony of Vesak at the UN SCAP Hall. So we'll be waiting for most of our guests, especially Professor Dr. Venerable Professor Dr. Prakupalat Panyavarawat or Venerable Prajan Hansa Tamahaso, Director of International Buddhist Studies College, to come here and deliver the welcome speech. So before I start, I would also like to make an announcement on behalf of the representative of the UN staffs. So it's a housekeeping announcement that I would like to inform you all. The below is recommended for the event organizer to include in their Emcee facilitators opening. On behalf of the organizer, we would like to share with you the COVID-19 related precautionary measures while attending meetings at the UNCC. Please observe 1.5 meter physical distancing while sitting in the conference room 3. Seats that should not be used are marked with signatures, and please not move these signatures, chairs or furniture in the room. It is mandatory to wear face masks all the time, except when you take the floor. Disposable microphone covers are available for you to utilize as a precautionary measure. These measures are for your safety and to safeguard the well-being of us all. Now we will play the video on COVID-19 for meeting participants at the UNCC. Thank you for your kind attention and cooperation in advance. So please turn on the video to everyone.
Welcome to the United Nations Conference Center, Bangkok. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, your safety is our first priority, and we have taken precautionary measures for the protection of everyone in the conference center. All personnel entering the UN premises are subject to thermal screening tests. Hand sanitizers are available throughout the conference centers, together with instructions on the correct hygiene procedures. Guidance on preventive measures is displayed around the facility, including contact details of health service providers in Bangkok. All conference halls, meeting rooms, and public spaces have been reconfigured to ensure physical distancing, and we are supporting virtual participation in every way we can.
Okay, thank you for the video for housekeeping announcement. And one more thing that I would like to inform you that due to the protocols and measures in this UNCC hall, as you can see in this conference hall, you cannot see any water bottles. So due to the protocols of keeping the clean nature, or let's say biodegradable wastes, I would also like to inform you that the IBSC has prepared you with the water bottles that is in front of you. You can have it as a souvenir gift, and you can keep this bottle for this whole day. You can go around the canteen and just fill up the water to drink, okay, for your information. So yes, as we have seen the videos, you are prohibited to to open your face masks and walk around here. So I kindly request everyone to please put on your face masks all the time. So we're still waiting for the time because we also have the grand opening at the SCAP hall. So we'll wait for a couple of minutes so that all the participants, especially the on-site participants, are all here. So we know that today, on behalf of the Vesak celebration, an important day for all the Buddhists, not only all the Buddhists, but let's say for the whole world, as the United Nations has declared as one of the important day. So we have all gathered here on behalf of Buddhists and world citizens to be here to learn something or to commemorate the Buddha's Day. And in this occasion, we are also here to this forum, Mindfulness Forum, which is the second World Mindfulness Forum that International Buddhist Studies College of MCU has held since 2019. And for today's forum, as I would also like to introduce most of the distinguished guests, the executives and administrators of International Buddhist Studies College, including we have Assistant Professor Dr. Pratmaha Sompong Kunakaro, the Vice Director of International Buddhist Studies College, MCU is also here. We have Venerable Assistant Professor Dr. Piyaratana from Faculty of Buddhism, Mahachulalongkorn Ratchavidyalaya University. We have Professor Dr. Frank J Hoffman from International Buddhist Studies College. We have Professor Dr. Huang Zhu Nun and his team from Bangkok University, and the students, especially the students of International Buddhist Studies College, and also the participants who are watching live from Facebook page, Facebook Live. So without further ado, now we'll be moving into the opening ceremony. So Venerable, I would briefly introduce today's chairperson's bio. Venerable Professor Dr. Prakupalat Panyawarawat Hansata Mahaso is currently a professor in Buddhist Studies at International Buddhist Studies College of MCU, and also a secretary to Director of International Association of Buddhist Universities, and Director of IBSC MCU. And he's also an experienced meditation teacher, and he has taught many subjects, including modern Buddhism, modern hermeneutics, seminar on Buddhism, and peaceful means studies, Buddhism and current affairs, Buddhist philosophy, seminar on Buddhism, and engaged Buddhism. So without further ado, I would kindly pay respect to Most Venerable Prakupalat Panyawarawat, Venerable Ajahn Hansata Mahaso, to lead us to today's program.
I would like to bring your attention to pay homage to the Buddha together. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagavan Buddhaṃ Bhagavantaṃ Abhivādemi Sawakkato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅgho Saṅghang Namami Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma tassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. respected to อาจารย์มหาสมพงษ์คุณากโร Vice Director for Academic Affairs, Professor Chonbok and Professor Huang Zhu Nun from Dongguk University, Seoul, Korea. Ladies and gentlemen, and today I'm very delighted to have a chance to meet you all. A couple of years ago, we all been here to organize the first World Mindfulness Forum at United Nations. At that time, we talked together. How can we apply mindfulness in the practical way to practice in daily life? No one knows. One day, COVID-19 come to let you all learn and how to understand, especially how to live with COVID-19 properly and mindfully. 2 years back, now we still facing COVID-19. Apart from that, we are facing conflict and war at this moment. There are too many people, not only you, but people in Ukraine, Russia, and surround the world still suffer because of that. But when we look back to the Buddha time, whenever we still suffer, the thing we should do, how can we apply mindfulness to practice in daily life? Mindfulness is foundation to build peace inside your mind. Without mindfulness, it seems to be difficult to survive. One person who would be able to tell you about this matter is the Buddha. When the Buddha stay in the royal palace, he suffer because of materialism, family, and so on. Every day when the Buddha wake up in the morning, at that time he is Siddhartha Bodhisattva. When he wake up in the morning, he try to ask himself, what is true happiness? The question he tried to ask himself many times bring him to find out that answer. Eventually he understand that whenever he leave from royal palace family and try to find out true happiness inside his mind on the top of the mountain, he know that the tool to bring true peace inside his mind, the tool to cultivate true peace inside his mind will be mindfulness. Mindfulness is like a mother. Mindfulness is like a mother to build everything. Sati, that is its healing. Sati is the name of our mother. So today, this such good time for all of us to come to share whatever the Buddha tried to practice in the past. So how can we apply the way that the Buddha tried to practice in this time? I, on behalf of human being, not just MCU, on behalf of human being, now we come to learn the wisdom that the Buddha tried to show you all if we would like to achieve true happiness. Come back to practice and practice. Not just share what happened, not just learn pariyatti. Pariyatti, it seems to be difficult for you all to understand the real Buddha teaching inside your mind body. The one way to understand the real Buddha teaching, it would be able to understand and explore inside your mind body. The Buddha never passed away. Just body of the Buddha passed away 2,600 years ago. But the real Buddha still lying inside our mind body. If you all would like to understand and see who is the Buddha, what is mindfulness? Practice mindfulness to receive the real Buddha inside there. Welcome you all. Explore, see what happened. And I do hope that today you all would be able to share whatever you used to practice in the past to all human beings. They suffer, they need help. They would like somebody to guide them all, to coach them all. You all being here already, please help them. And thank you very much for you all who being here. Buddha bless you all. Thank you.
On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to sincerely thank Venerable Professor Dr. Prakku Palat Panjawaravat, Director of International Buddhist Studies College, MCU, for sharing his wonderful thoughts and delivering the opening remark to the participants both on-site and online here. Now, without further ado, we will move on to our first panel discussion. So before we move on to that, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce you to today's moderator for both the sessions. We have Miss Meena Kittikunsiri, who is a learning designer and Power Apps developer at Bangkok Bank. She earned her Bachelor's of Economics from Chulalongkorn University and Master's of Science in Human Resources and Organizations from London School of Economics and Political Science. She also has another Master's in Science in Computer Science from Faculty of Engineering, Chulalongkorn University. So without further ado, I would like to turn over this microphone to Ms. Meena Kittikunsiri to do the further job.
Thank you very much, Pramaha Asirawashiranaku, for being our amazing MC, and Venerable Prakku Parat Panyawarawat for an inspiring and touching opening remarks. My name is Meena, and it's a genuine pleasure to welcome everybody to our first panel discussion on the topic of mindfulness practice in the time of crisis, which is really a relevant topic in today's world, where we face various kind of crises. And I'm very thrilled to introduce you all to three amazing scholars who are expert in the field and who have dedicated their lives to the research and the practice of mindfulness. So our first scholar is Professor Dr. Huang Zhu Nun, a dean from College of Buddhism, Dongguk University, Seoul, South Korea. His main field of research is the doctrinal history of Indian Buddhism and the South and Southeast Asian Buddhism culture. He received his PhD from Oxford University concerning the doctrinal history of Nirvana in India. Our second scholar is Professor Dr. Frank J. Hoffman from International Buddhist Studies College, Chulalongkorn Ratchavidyalaya, and visiting scholar associate in South Asia Center at University of Pennsylvania. He received PhD in philosophy of religion at King's College, University of London. He also has 126 published items, including books, article, book reviews, and also an associate editor of the journal Asian Philosophy. And our last scholar is Associate Professor Dr. Venerable W. B. Ratana, a senior lecturer at the Department of Buddhist Study and a director of BA English program at Faculty of Buddhism, Mahachulalongkorn Rashvidyalaya University. He earned his PhD in Buddhist study from the Buddhist and Pali University in Sri Lanka and MCU. And the way we structure this panel discussion is, first, we will have each of the scholars sharing their presentation on the topic for about 20 minutes each. And then after that, we will move on to the discussion and questions as part of the panel discussion. And the audience will have the opportunity to ask and have conversation with our expert. So if you have any question during the presentation, please wait until the Q&A session, or you can type in the chat in advance. So now let's start with the first presentation from our first scholar, Professor Dr. Huang Zhu Nun. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for wonderful introduction. My name is Sunil Huang, and I'm from College of Buddhism in Dongguk University. And it is my great honor to be able to give a talk in this auspicious occasion. And I'm always enjoy coming here in Thailand. And I always believe, in my previous life, I might well be a monk in Bangkok or in Chiang Mai, maybe practice some, Theravada, so-called Theravada Buddhism. Unfortunately, I'm more like a scholar, not a meditation practitioner. So my experience in meditation is very, very limited. So today I'm here, sitting here, to have a lesson from all the venerable monks and scholars. And I hope you can teach me to do a better understanding of Buddhist meditation, especially mindful meditation today. So my topic, mindful practice in the time of crisis. I prepare some slides. Human beings tend to feel a sense of intimacy and fellowship when they belong to a certain group. But the opposite side of the coin is that they also feel, however vaguely, hostility, rivalry against those in other groups. The same phenomena is applied to the feeling people get regarding football team they support without any specific reason. They hate people who support their rival football teams. So in America, for example, Michigan University has got football team, and they fight against other university, and then students fighting each other because they had a stronger bond among the students in their same university. Also, they feel hostile against the rival universities. The same with me, because I'm from Busan in South Korea, and Busan has got very nice a baseball team called the Lotte Giants. So any supporters who support Lotte Giants, we all love and care each other. But at the same time, we feel hostile against the people who support the other team. And somehow this is kind of inborn nature within the human being. And in the time of crisis, this kind of a national bond or ethnic, intimacy getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So this kind of feeling getting stronger and stronger and stronger. The crisis going to be deepened, and people fight each other, hate each other, and so on. The occasion usually going to be very serious. Perhaps inborn, in-group morality or close the ethic could be deeply embedded into human nature through promoting the stronger bond among our members and the hostility toward the other group, or strangers. So well-known British atheist called Richard Dawkins, in his book, The God Delusion, he even talked about religion as well. He said, religion is a level of in-group and out-group enmity and vendetta, not necessarily worse than other levels such as skin color, language, or preferred football team, but often available when other levels are not. And he also said, trouble in Northern Ireland, for example, have a deeper political element. But the case here illustrates that religion often plays as a factor that accelerates a breakup of the society. So Buddhist universal morality of not killing, loving kindness and compassion seems not to function properly when it was faced with the collective ideas such as a nation state, a racial identity, and with the outburst of conflict and violence among different groups. Even in the case of South Korea, we had a war against Japan in 1592 and 97, and Korean monk build a monk army, and Japanese all build the Japanese monk army, and monk fighting each other during the war. So somehow, even though Buddhist wants to have a peace of mind and wants to be, a peaceful person, but when collective ideas confronting each other under the name of nation or under the name of ethnicity, people tend to fight. When the value of a nation state or particular racial identity become more important than individuals, what Buddhists could do is fairly limited, since Buddhist ethics asks for individuals to take full responsibility for their own behaviors. In the time of crisis, people tend to have a more bond toward their own group, such as a nation state and ethnic group, without showing any tolerance or open-hearted attitude toward other groups. For example, nowadays, we can see Ukraine-Russian war, even the same, people fighting each other without showing any tolerance and sympathy and so on. And also in the case of COVID-19 pandemic, some countries, monopolize vaccines, not allow them to share with the other people. So in many occasions, when group identity become more stronger, this kind of crisis become deeper and make us fighting each other. However, a true Buddhist should refrain from identifying friends and foes and confronting enemies under no circumstance, whether it is about nation state, ethnic group, or religion. In the time of a crisis, universal morality of Buddhism calling on people to show their loving kindness and compassion toward all living beings without having any distinctions. How to develop such a skillful attitude toward the other groups without overwhelmed by enmity and violence and vendetta and so on. Well, how we can do that? We can do that. Or what kind of a method we can apply? I think in early Buddhist text, vipassana tended to be called as a tebija, three knowledges. And three knowledges tend to be anicca, dukkha, anatta. So anicca, my translation is nothing lasts forever. And dukkha, it will eventually give us suffering or unsatisfactory needs. And anatta, there is nothing belongs to me, including myself. So this is one of the key insights through which we should see the world, through which we should see around us, through which we should see within ourselves. So currently we are living in an unbalanced state between what we want and what we actually get. So we are living under compromised state in our ordinary life. And that is why we are easily, getting into the group ideas and fight each other. So one of my monk friends usually showed me this one, and this left side, you can see people enjoy dancing and music and so on. People feel very happy, but they all felt this happiness belongs to me, or this is mine, and my life is very enjoyable. But from the eye of vipassana, from the eye of insight of anicca, dukkha, anatta, it doesn't belong to me, and everyone will disappear, in very soon. So establishing mindfulness based on understanding of anicca, dukkha, anatta in every moment of our life is very important to have a better understanding of the world. But for me, the mindfulness is very difficult word, not easy to understand. So one day I went to Hong Kong to have a Hong Kong Underground, and the Hong Kong Underground has got that signpost said, "Please mind the gap." So actually, in between train and the platform, there was a gap. If you go to England, the gap is so wide, you can easily, going down. So in any moment, you cannot remember. So sati is Pali word, and Sanskrit is smriti. And smriti basically means remember. If you are not remember the triple mark of the phenomenal world, anicca, dukkha, and anatta, you are in trouble. Just like that, you are in the underground, and you forgot about the gap in between train and the platform, then you will be in trouble. So mindfulness, one should constantly and perpetually recognize the fact that there is nothing, whether one like it or not, lasts forever, anicca. Everything eventually gives us suffering, dukkha, and thus there is nothing we can say this belongs to me, or this is myself, anatta. So if we have this kind of insight through which we can see the world, we will see the real picture of the world we are living in. When mindfulness is fully established, one is, according to the early Buddhist text, one is losing interest in body, feeling, perception, intention, and consciousness, and so on. Being without interest, his lust fade away. With the fading away of the lust, his heart is liberated. So this is a typical sentence in the early canon where people talk about being liberated from all the attachment and defilement and passion inside of us. So in the liberation, the following knowledge occur. In this case, in the case of the Buddha, the birth is destroyed, religious life is fulfilled, done what should be done. There is no more new existence in this realm. This is for the higher level. But how about the lay Buddhist? How about the Buddhism applied into the world? That's the problem. Buddhist mindful practice could be the tool to make us apart from our habitual tendencies to identify friends and foes and to confront them as an enemy with hostility and violence. So territorial dispute, Korea had a territorial dispute with North Korea, Japan, and China, and China, all surrounding area had a territorial dispute. But from the eye of vipassana, that kind of a borderline, we tended to feel like it's permanent, but it never been the permanent. It's all anicca. That kind of borderline cannot last forever. Even the racial identity, as far as I understand about Korean people, we all believe all Korean people are just the one single ethnic group, one single ethnic race. And according to the legend, our first ancestor coming down from the sky, getting married with a bear, and Korean people, established it. But when we actually had what is it, gene test among the people in South Korea, and Korean people are actually mixed with the northern race and Chinese and Japanese as well. So it's actually mixed race. So all kind of a conception, we thought this is permanent, this will last forever, actually cannot last forever. So once we are attached to that kind of a concept, that concept will eventually give us, sometimes give us, happiness, but usually give us suffering. So that, the world we are living in will be suffer, as far as I understand. Buddhist mindful practice could also develop the state of mind full of equanimity, upekkha, toward all living beings without separating our group from other groups. Lay Buddhists tend to develop individual metta, individual karuna, only for one's own relatives and friends. But true Buddhists, with the help of mindful practice, to develop Maha Metta and Maha Karuna. So I'm a layman, so my metta, become happy when other people become happy, apply only to my relatives, only to my friend, and so on. So people naturally make a kind of a borderline, and within the borderline, we feel like they are our side. And outside of borderline, we feel like they are the other people. Then we develop some kind of hostility and violence as well. But true Buddhists should develop Maha Metta and Maha Karuna. And according to the early Buddhist text, this is the quality of the Buddha we should follow. Buddhists in the time of crisis should develop Maha Metta and Maha Karuna for all living beings without making any distinction. When all Buddhists have developed Maha Metta and Maha Karuna for all living beings, the world we are going to live in would be a lot better than the world we are living in now. So Maha Metta and Maha Karuna, I didn't explain. So Maha Metta and Maha Karuna, which means we have a happy mind when other people become happy. We have a sad mind when other people become sad. Maha Metta and Maha Karuna, there is no distinction. Once we develop that mind, even the enemies, even the people we hate, when they become sad, and we also become sad. When they happy, when we become happy. This is not an easy thing we can actually do. And I had a problem to develop. For example, as a Korean citizen, sometimes I feel like I have to be happy when North Korean leader successfully launch nuclear missile. I should be happy, and something like that. This is not very easy. So in actual world, from our own human nature, developing Maha Metta and Maha Karuna is very difficult, very difficult. And but when I did some mindful practice with my Vipassana teacher, I sometimes, when I had a feeling against him occur, I tended to turn my attention away to my body, where my body is responding. Then I try to focus my body, and the feeling of my body when disappear, my hatred against certain people tended to be disappear. That's a kind of a goenka vipassana practice. When I did it, and sometimes I feel like someone give me a hate word, but when I accept it, and then I turn my attention to my body, where my body responds, and then I can answer him back with a smile and happiness and so on. So this is a very nice way to turn our hatred and our violence into our happiness and our understanding. So mindful practice actually do that, and Tibetan Buddhists as well do the similar. So once I was in India with a Tibetan teacher, I did a visualization meditation, and I said to my teacher, it is not easy to develop the mind of Maha Metta and Maha Karuna. And my teacher said to me, close your eyes and visualizing your heart. Make your metta in the form of lead shape, heart shape, and then make it and give it to your mother. And next one, give it to mother. And all the person I knew, I just give it. And then my teacher said, give it to someone you know. So give it to the president of South Korea, give it to the, minister and university staff. And I said to her, no more people I can give it. Then she said to me that, then you should share your metta and your karuna with the people you hate. So at that very moment, for the first time, I gave my heart to the leader of North Korea. I share my heart with some other people, and then miraculously, after my visualization meditation, I feel less and less feeling of hostility and vendetta against them. So this is a kind of a practice we Buddhists should do. But the problem is that we are doing it in individual level, not in a group level. So Buddhists should develop that kind of mind one by one, but we cannot do it in a kind of group level. When all Buddhists have developed Mahametta and Mahakaruna, so this is the ideal place we should go, then the world we are living in could be a lot better. So usually when people talk about that, I usually answer them back by the thing of John Lennon, the thing imagined in the later half part. He said, you may say I'm a dreamer, but you may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. And one day you will join us, then the world will be as a one, and we are living in a harmonious places. So Buddhist practice, whether it is vipassana, whether it is a visualization meditation, or whether it is a Zen meditation, we are aiming at developing that kind of a peaceful, harmonious mind called Upekkha. Upekkha is the place, as a Venerable Dhammahansa said, mother of meditation, mother of Buddhist practice. So that mind, if all the Buddhists can develop it, we can actually transform. We can actually transform. The effort of each and every Buddhist could transform the world of crisis with the full of confrontation, hostility, and violence into the world of a harmonious middle without leading to conflict, destruction, and devastation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Huang Zhu Nun, for the wonderful sharing and remind us how we should refrain from identifying friends and foes, especially in the crisis time, and instead to show our loving kindness, compassion to all living beings. And now let's move to the next presentation from Professor Dr. Frank Hoffman from International Buddhist Studies College, MCU.
It works. Can you all hear me? Thank you very much for inviting me here, leadership. This is our first panel discussion, and in my introduction here, I would like to introduce you to a book called Community Violence and Peace, Aldo Leopold, the environmentalist, Mohandas K. Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and Gautama Buddha in the 21st century. With the theme of crisis that Hermans opens his book with, it is because of crisis that reflective people can confront the problems and try to analyze and solve them. Today, one sees how wars, global warming, race hatred, and social fragmentation harm us personally and globally. A solution may be found in non-harming, ahimsa, and that includes non-injury and, of course, non-violence too. There are crises of various kinds, but solutions may be found if, instead of giving into habitual ways of thinking, we begin to see things differently as opportunities for cooperation rather than conflict. The book Mindful Mediation by John Connell points the way to mediating conflicts between neighbors. In its example, the giant mango trees, mango trees being usually a shared resource, but it became a disputed area when one man thought of individual ownership and rights. The two who argued eventually became friends by reflection and mediation, but it took patience and time. Today, I will discuss how conflict arises and how it may cease from Buddhist perspectives. My remarks are meant as stimuli to crosstalk with my co-presenters on the panel and also with the audience. The background: sickness of mindlessness over consumption and metta to oneself first. Harm to animals, earth, and humans results from mindless consumption and a lack of loving kindness to oneself, and then to all the beings who feel pain. Without a basis in metta, that my colleague was just speaking of, and Mahametta in particular, to oneself first, it's easy to fall into the trap of being a doormat to the world, and hence, in the long run, being resentful that you tried this practice. As the author Erich Fromm discussed in Herman book, informed us some time ago, Erich Fromm did, that Western society was sick, was going insane with its overemphasis on consumption, on food, sex, movies, and violent behavior. And by the way, that's our biggest export from America, our biggest export, our most harmful gift to the world. And all this was, of course, to the neglect of how to build sustainable communities and serve the least advantaged members. Rachel Carson, in her book, Silent Spring, had rung the alarm bell long before environmental degradation had come to this crisis in the 21st century. In short, overconsumption of the Earth's resources in a mindless way, has led to violence to the environment and eventually back to ourselves. It's a loop. Metta has to start with the individual first in order to be truly effective in helping others. Wisdom from the Sutta Pitaka. I just referenced 3 sutta. There are so many riches in Sutta Pitaka, we could spend a lifetime trying to unpack them. I start with Sedaka Sutta. Bamboo Acrobat Sutta is its nickname. It shows how mindfulness starts in our own case by not checking the teacher's steps on the high wire as he instructed Metta Kathalika, but checking one's own steps. So the teacher told her, "Please watch my steps, dear one, because I'm afraid I might slip." She said, oh no, master, this will never do. If I watch my steps, I will be successful, and you watch your steps, we will be successful. Then we will come down from the high wire, get paid for our work, and go on. She shows how loving kindness starts with being kind to oneself. Discourse on Perfect View, Samadhi Sutta, is on about knowing the distinction between skillful and unskillful kamma, and refraining from raga, dosa, moha, which I translate obsession, hatred, and confusion. Stopping what fuels rebirth by following the Eightfold Noble Path. And the result would be suffering is eliminated. To eliminate grasping, to understand the Four Noble Truths, to understand the defilements, the asavas, to understand the Eightfold Way. I reference my little teaching book. It's not a scholarly book, Introduction to Early Buddhism, which I use at IBSC. Third sutta, Discourse on Being Angry, Kodana Sutta. 7 ways where hate and irritability being another translation of Kodana, can harm oneself if one does not adopt self-control, clear seeing, resilience, and right view. Anger and irritability affects one's physical and mental health and is self-destructive and socially dangerous too. I just tell a quick anecdote. The wife of Medgar Evers saw Medgar shot down in his front yard, going to work in front of his whole family. So she began to hate all white people. And when she saw the Dixie flag, she hated it. But one day, a child of hers came home and said, "Mommy, I don't understand. The teacher said, Jesus is love and we should love everyone. But you say to hate white people." At this point, she had a change of heart. She broke down and cried and cried. That's what this is about, a change of heart. Mindful living. Thich Nhat Hanh, author of many books, including Peace in Every Step, advocates creating a culture of peace and recognition of interbeing with every mindful step, such as, in practice, every day, mindful walking, mindful eating, mindfulness in everyday activities. The way I think, in this way, ideally, all of life could become a meditation instead of meditation being just an event in life. For sure, this is a difficult thing to do. For sure, if we try it, we're only making little bitty baby steps every day. But what we have to remember is the takeaway point: humans are among the beings that inhabit the planet Earth, and they intersect with all life. In other words, we're not the main event. Theory and practice. Payuto's Samasati book emphasizes several key ideas. Social value is emphasized, as I would say in the Bamboo Acrobat Sutta. Value for getting wisdom, we speak here of wisdom for the world, is really eradication of defilements. As an essence of satipatthana, Payutto speaks, the fruits of sati, of remembering, of mindfulness, such as keeping abreast of the present moment, which keeps mind from wandering, whatever we do. In the ideal case, mindfulness, sati, is the guardian of the mind. And also, it can be the object in front of the mind for consideration. Buddhadasa's 5 skillful tricks in his very useful and intelligently edited in English book, Mindfulness with Breathing. Following the breath. 2, guarding the breath. 3, giving rise to a nimitta, an imaginary image that is the guarding point. 4, manipulating those images in any ways we want in order to gain power over the images. 5, selecting one of these images and contemplating it in a most concentrated way until they become truly calm and peaceful. Buddhadasa himself prefers the tiny white dot or the white image, but recognizes we can use many colors, blue, green, red, whatever, but not to get fixed on something. That's the key. Not to, for example, take a Buddha image and think, oh, my dear Buddha image, will it come back today? Will I experience the nimitta today? No, let things be. Let things be. With this, it's possible to arrive at perfect awareness in the first stage of jhana. It's surely not the whole story, but in the first stage of jhana. About Buran Kamathana, the old tradition. I reference this because it's been very much in the recent scholarship, and I want to point you to 4 people who've been developing this idea. I think it's a disputable question as whether or not and to what extent this intersects with Thai Theravada, but I want to put it in front of you as an object of reflective contemplation. Crosby 2020 explains the technologies of transformation, I mean Kate Crosby, in Boron Kamathana, the old tradition, and what happened to suppress them in the modern era. A very interesting story indeed. Kusaniti 2018 explains mindfulness and its psychological power to get what you want. Very direct. Cook 2010 explains meditation in modern Buddhism to help one develop their psychological and emotional capacities. Well, collectively, these three books, by the way, all written by women, shed light on the benefits of Buddhist practice in terms of technologies of transformation, development of psychological and emotional capacities. So what we see here in this recent development in at least Western scholarship is that the development I reference in premise 4 is a shift away from pariyatti texts alone that have been separated from patipati practice. So my conclusion here is that according to recent research, meditating in the old tradition can unleash the technologies of transformation, develop the psychological power to succeed, to develop one's psychological and emotional capacities, combine with text studies and practice together, and overall to discover the benefits of being Buddhist. I'll tell you a little joke. When I first arrived at IBSC, many of my students talked about benefits in class. I wasn't used to this. I wasn't used to it at all. I think in American Buddhism, we don't talk much about benefits, but maybe we should. I mean, why are you doing this anyway? The process of mindful mediation. John McConnell's amazing book, which I've used in classes and subsequently become much more interested in how to do mindful mediation, although that's not my specialty. One, know how Buddhist concepts can be understood to provide psycho-spiritual foundation for peacemaking. To understand the story of the great mango trees and how self-centered individualistic thinking, a feeling of possessiveness, righteousness, and legalistic maneuvering leads to conflict with others. 3, learning how to apply Buddha Dhamma to analyze conflict and resolve it. 4, developing skills in conflict resolution, such as deep listening. Not just listening while thinking what you're going to say next. Deep listening. Speaking sensitively. Maintaining balance and ensuring confidentiality. I think at some times in your Buddhist lives, you're going to be called upon unexpectedly to practice mediation. I hope you can remember these. 5, contemplating Buddha's own initiative to mediate conflict with the quarrelsome monks of Kosambi and when mediating between the Koyan and the Sakyan states. And finally, developing trust and goodwill between the conflicting parties, as happened in the incident of the great mango trees, and using that perception and feeling, that trust and goodwill to mediate between them. This is truly a handbook for Buddhist peacemakers. Here's my recap and conclusion. Now it's time to sum up. I promised you in the beginning I would talk about how conflict arises and how it may cease from Buddhist perspectives. So here you are. Instead of giving in to habitual ways of thinking, we need to see things differently as opportunities for cooperation rather than conflict. Mindful mediation points the way to mediating conflicts between neighbors in its example, the giant mango trees, usually a shared resource, but it became a disputed area when people thought of individual ownership and rights. The two who argued eventually became friends by reflection and mediation. Notice it took a skillful mediator to bring them together. Obviously, they couldn't do this by themselves. They were too polarized. Arthur Herman begins his book, Community Violence and Peace, with a discussion of crisis. Nowadays, we can see how wars, global warming, race hatred, and social fragmentation harm us personally and globally. We become less by hating. We might think in triumphalism, we become greater. But exactly the opposite is true. We lessen ourselves by hating. We see this as Buddhists. Non-harming, and that includes non-injury and non-violence too, is the means. Non-harming. Non-violence, as Christopher Key Chappell says in one of his books, will help animals, earth, and you. Mindful living with the acrobat sutta, Sedaka, mindful walking, mindful eating, as Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh says, mindfulness in everyday activities so that ideally all of life becomes a meditation, and meditation is not just an event in life. Payuta's book Samasati shows how Bhikkhu Buddha Dasa's Anapanasati, mindfulness with breathing, works. Recently, books by Cook, Casaniti, and Crosby have illuminated the importance and the present-day application of Boran Kamatana. This is one of my favorite books, and it's not much known, and I would really like people to know more about it. It's actually a brilliant book out of Sri Lankan Theravada tradition. RGS Wetamuni explains the egolessness as the key to eliminate suffering. Egolessness. Buddhism is the complete unbinding, the nibbana. Crises are avoidable if there is a mindset of non-ego. At best, humankind can work together in an egoless way, and at worst, we can destroy ourselves and the planet by uncompromising competitive behavior. I can think of no more fitting conclusion than to cite this part of John McConnell's own conclusion in his book, Mindful Mediation, a handbook for Buddhist peacemakers. Essentially, the Dhamma belongs where there is suffering. The Dhamma belongs in the hearts and minds of people. It belongs where people are and in what they do. Certainly, Dhamma begins in the what, but it also belongs in the market and in the battlefield. Wish you a pleasant conference.
Thank you for a really interesting presentation. Dr. Frank has reminded us that mindfulness shouldn't be just an event in life, but should be adopted in every moment. Just like when Professor Dr. Huang Zhu Nun said that we should adopt the concept of anicca, dukkha, anatta in every moment of our life. And I really agree with the concept that we should metta or be kind to ourselves first before taking care of others. Because I know a lot of social worker or caregiver who are burning out from their work, and when they turn back and try to balance to be compassionate but not take on the problems, they are more better able to help and give back to the society in the long run. And lastly, Dr. Hoffman said that it's important that we all develop the skill for conflict resolution, such as deep listening or speaking sensitively and remain the balance. And now, before we go into the next presentation, we are going to have a 5-minute coffee break. So we will get back here in this room at 10:05 for the last presentation for the first panel discussion.
Hey, good. Thank you. Different from the one I read with you last time where you told me I was all over the place. And we talked in
The break is already outside, but you're not allowed to bring any food in here. So please take your break outside.
coffee time. Let's do it.
That happens.
Okay, so I would also like to announce for our online participants, we are having 5 minutes break here in the on-site venue. So we'll meet again at 10:05 a.m. Right? So in this conference meeting room, we are having a 5 minutes break for everyone. So also for the online participants as well, you can take a short 5 minutes break as well. Thank you. So I would like to make an announcement to all the participants here on site. Please be here in this room so we can continue our first panel discussion. We still have one more scholar left for this morning discussion. We have Assistant Professor Dr. Venerable Piyaratana in this first panel discussions this morning. So I kindly request all the participants, if you can hear me outside this room, to please enter the room so that we can continue our first panel discussion in this morning session. As we have heard the discussion from two scholars this morning, which was Professor Dr. Huang Zhu Nun from Bangkok University and Professor Dr. Frank Hoffman from IBSC. They've shared their interesting thoughts with researchers in terms of mindfulness practice and the concept and the theory of mindfulness. And we still have a few more scholars left, both in this morning session and afternoon session, that we'll hear some interesting thoughts about mindfulness in our daily lives. So before we start again, I would kindly request everyone outside this conference meeting room A to please come back to conference meeting room A so that we can continue our first panel discussion and end this morning session. So for those who have already finished taking their breaks, short breaks, can come back to this room and sit on the places that you've been sitting this morning, and please keep the social distancing in 1.5 meters as the UN protocol has mentioned, the housekeeping announcement that I made this morning. After this, no? Invite. To So after participants who left for the break has arrived, please be seated according to the places that you sit this morning, and please do not remove or move any things from here. And during the Q&A sessions, you can use this disposable microphone cover after all the scholars have made their presentations and discussions. So I think I will turn over this stage to Ms. Meena to continue the session. Thank you.
Welcome back to our panel discussion on the topic of mindfulness practice in the time of crisis. And now let's move to the presentation from our last scholar, Associate Professor Dr. Venerable W. Piya Ratana from Faculty of Buddhism, Mahachuralongkorn Rachavitiyalai.
So good morning all the venerables and distinguished scholars and my dear friends in the Dhamma. So it is my great pleasure to be here and to share some ideas related to this theme, mindfulness practice in the time of crisis. I think it is very timely topic to be discussed as the human beings are facing various crises more than ever before in the history. So I think that the organizers, they have taken very great step to bring out this type of topic and issue to discuss and find at least some solution to overcome these crises. So mindfulness in another sense, insight meditation, in Pali we call sati for the mindfulness, and insight meditation, that is vipassana. So these terms very often, I mean, we can find within the scriptures. So if you refer to the discourse of four foundation of mindfulness, it is related to contemplation on body, contemplation on feeling, contemplation on mind, contemplation on Dhamma. So this last chapter, that is contemplation on Dhamma, it is consisted several factors. Just now our professor Huang Zhu Nun mentioned that three universal characteristics that we could pay attention or to be mindfulness. So that is also included in last conclusion, that is contemplation on Dhamma. So here basic, as we know that when we talk about insight meditation, that is consisted of these four contemplation. So the mindfulness in terms of Buddhism, it is discussing about these basically these four contemplation. So in another sense, like when they translate the term satipatthana, so it is also mentioned that the foundation of the mindfulness. So that is very essential to concern. It is the foundation of mindfulness. So that means there are many things to be built up on this foundation. So that is a term which related to Buddhist teaching of mindfulness. So when we talk about the crisis, that we can actually divide it into two, all the crises. So crisis created by the nature and crisis created by the mankind. So when we talk about the crisis or some crisis facing the mankind today, we can conclude like the global warming, climate change, competition among the world powers, arms or race, productions of dangerous chemicals or the etc., diseases, natural and man-made, energy crisis, poverty, food shortage, drinking water shortage, deforestation, pollution, natural disaster, earthquake, earth slips, floods, and also volcanoes. So these are, but among these crises, that is one of the most serious crisis that the human being were facing and still are facing, that is the COVID-19. So specialty of this pandemic is that it challenged human beings in many different ways. As you know, that it started as corona, and then COVID-19, and Delta plus, Micron, Delta Micron. I recently heard from the WHO, it is having new variety of COVID-19, so which is very serious. So this is the crisis that we are facing in modern day. So what human beings experience that. So these are the crises that society poses to other people for a variety of reasons, and some are the crises that some are the crises that nature poses to the human beings as a result of human activities. Some of above crises, such as climate change, environmental disasters, floods, landslides, droughts, and global warming. So you know that these things, some they considered as the natural disaster. But in closer and deeper infections, we feel that they are also the result of certain arbitrary and long-term human activities of human beings. We can give different definitions or the interpretation, but somehow, as the human activities, also we are facing various natural disasters. So, so what happened during the COVID pandemic, that the world order has changed completely after the COVID-19 and has affected every life and the environment of the earth. Lots of people have lost their loved one, and children have lost parent, and vice versa. So lifestyle change, and most could not accept the sudden change, which resulted in nervous breakdown, loneliness, loss of hope, unable to bear the loss of in the families, losing jobs, rising cost of living, which is above the earning, and food scarcity, and the loss of hope and faith in their religions. Isolation, contact restrictions, and economic shutdown impose a complete change to psycho-social environment in affected countries. So somehow we experienced that at the beginning, like some countries, they were very proud to claim that they have overcome the COVID pandemic. But right after, even like maybe 1 or 2 months, they have to withdraw. They are claiming, and they started to fight against the COVID-19. So that is the seriousness of this issue. So it is that is the reason, the very beginning I mentioned that it is really time to discuss about mindfulness on contemporary crisis. And if we have mindfulness, so this restriction given by word WHO, as we know that it is to aware of ourselves. If you can protect yourself, that the same time you are protecting others. This is very essential teaching from the Buddha's period, that Buddha mentioned that one who protects oneself, one who protects himself, he protects others. In Pali we call Attanang Rakkanto Parang Rakkati. So, so what is happening due to a crisis human being experiences various mental illnesses such as like stress, anxiety, depression, various disorders. There are 10 types of different disorders, mental disorders, just like a personality disorder, panic disorder, and bipolar disorders, or etc. And psychosis is one of the most problems or the issues facing human beings when they face with different type of crisis. So these are some only like few issues or the illnesses that a human being facing due to crisis. And also like when go back to the mindfulness practice, so it is very essential that Buddhism calls for the end of suffering, that is essential teaching. But in a matter of fact, Gautama Buddha teach many ways to get rid of all suffering and enlighten. The Buddhist teaching usually based on mindfulness in order to clearly see suffering in life. So if you very familiar quotation, as we all know that in Satipatthana Sutta. So here you can see the translation. This is the only way, O bhikkhu, for the purification of being, for extinguishing of suffering and displeasure, for attainment of knowledge, and for realization of nibbana. So that is the four foundation of mindfulness. But forget about, the for attainment of knowledge, then for realization of nibbana. But beside that, it is clearly mentioned in that suffering and displeasure, to overcome, to extinguishing of suffering and displeasure. So this is the benefit what we can experience through the mindfulness meditation in this very moment, in this very life. So dukkha domanassanang attangama. So dukkha domanassa, those are two terms related to physical suffering and also mental displeasure. So in this sutta, it is, even though it is a very long discourse, but in this quotation we can see the purpose of this very specific or the unique significance teaching related to mindfulness, and it is to overcome the contemporary issues just like suffering and displeasure. So those are related to in this very moment. So what mindfulness focusing on that, understanding a thing as it really is, if it is a single object, and also understanding the things as they really are. So there might be multiple objects. So this is the real purpose of mindfulness. So understanding a thing as it really is. So this is when we concern about these two concepts, they are very essential and very practicable. So most of the things that the crisis or the things or the issues that we are forgetting that what the real nature of the things as they really are. So one, we try to adopt or we try to implement to understand that in different way. So we have to recognize, we have to understand. So the real issue. So that is the reason why Buddha has presented to understand this, like when we talk about the Four Noble, the cause of suffering and cessations of suffering, and how one can cease the suffering. So these the factors to understand the real. So when we concern about further that understanding things can be applied in many discourses where we can find it, especially in Samyutta Nikaya. So it is talking about three factors that we have to pay attention. That is a dissatisfaction or satisfaction or dissatisfaction, advantages or the disadvantages. So if it is having such advantages, so taken as an object. So if it is really dangerous, harmful, so we have to escape it. So this is called asada adinava nissaran. So when we observe any object, when we sense or through our internal faculties, any external objects, so we have to concern about these three factors. So so what so then in one quotation in Sutta Nipata, it mentioned that the purity, therefore a purity, one does not think in that purity is by means of what is seen, heard or thought. Not does he wish for purity by anything else. He is neither impassioned not dispassioned. So that the Buddhist teaching concerned with middle path, or in another sense also it is can claim as a mindfulness. So what happened, like most of the crisis that just now professor mentioned, that when there are two football teams, when one experiences rejoicement within one team, that he against another. So this is what, when we attached, when we take any object as mine. So in terms of Buddhism, it is always emphasizes that to ignore what is I notion. It ignore as what is like myself, my mind and myself. So any discourses we find in within, especially in the Samyutta Nikaya, it is talking everywhere we can find this etang meta mama eso hamasmi eso me atta. So when we have such egoism, So we get into trouble, and also we are not only get into trouble by ourselves, but also we are taking others into the trouble and creating troubles to others. So this, in such sense, we can apply the teachings of mindfulness, as I mentioned earlier, that to understand the advantages or the disadvantages. So one discourse, the Buddha mentioned that is especially like such Vitaka Santana Sutta. So if it is any thought, any thinking which is damage, harmful to oneself, just ignore it and not to follow that thought and replace something else. So we will come for the some points. And also like when we talk about the mindfulness, as we aware that it is about concern with the present moment. So in such discourses like in Satipatthana Sutta, just now I mentioned earlier, and it is talking about whatever our postures. So it can be walking, standing, sitting, sleeping, and sleepless. So these are 5 postures, very general, very common. So we have to be aware, and also the mindfulness in those postures. So that means whatever position, so the whatever activities we are doing, we have to concern about the result of such activities. So in many occasions, or the many discourses, the Buddha was advising his disciples, especially like in Dhammapada, it is saying like Yanche hitancha saduncha tangve paramadukkara. So what is beneficial to oneself and also the beneficial to others, but it really hard to practice. But even though it is really hard, but still we have to keep trying. When we talk about the Emperor Asoka, as we know that he was establishing what's called pillars, scriptures, inscriptions everywhere to make society such a good place where the people can live with the happiness. And then unfortunately, like when he passed, the time passed, that he felt that even though he has given such advices and built up such inscriptions everywhere, that people still they are struggling, fighting. So then one inscription, he said that it is really hard to do something good in what is called in Prakrit language, it is called kayane kate dukale. So this is what he understood. So that is Emperor Asoka. So nothing to talk about like a human being like us. So then that's the reason, like the first advice, like the first what we have to pay attention, that mindfulness is concerned with the present moment. So it is like by staying in the present moment to the most extreme degree of the degree possible, as much as possible. So then so it consists of observing body and mind with bare attention. So this mindfulness, always like when you go through the discourses, you can see that the mindfulness appearing with another word, sampajanya, sati, sampajanya. Always like they are coming together. Sati here, the mindfulness, and sampajanya means the awareness. So we need both sati and the mindfulness and awareness. So what awareness is? So this awareness means what we are passing through, what we are facing through. So those things that we have to pay attention, and we have to go through that present moment. So here we can see that the Buddha discovered that the cause of suffering can be erased when we see our true nature. So that is personally he himself experienced that. So Buddha didn't follow any in one occasions, like King Milinda was asking that why you claim that you had no any teacher, since you follow other teachers like Kalara, Kalam, Uddakara, and Putta. So why you claim that Buddha said that he had no teacher? Of course, he had teacher before, but once when he was realizing the true nature of the Four Noble Truth, that he didn't have such teacher, so then he claimed that he has no teacher. So here you can see that, I mean, in such concept, when he understood the cause of suffering, and also it can be seized by seeing true nature of oneself and also true nature of the things. So it means that our happiness does not depend on manipulating the external world. So since this is very essential, or the significance teaching which concern that to brings the happiness to oneself and also to the others. So it is so when we go through the conclusion, what it is with the mindfulness is the ultimate conformity with reality. So it is to understand what the real nature and what the real things. So so very nice quotations we can find within Jata Sutta of Sangyutta Nikaya, Devata Sangyutta, and also that stanza appears in Jata Sutta whenever Buddhaghosa took advantages to compose entire Visuddhimagga, as you know that. So here you can see that the Buddha's path to deliverance or Nibbana was not mean only for religious purpose. His path serves for finding solution to the problems in the day-to-day life as well. So here the gods approach, one of the certain god approached the Buddha, and he was asking that that the inner tangle and the outer tangle, this generation is entangled in a tangle. And so I asked of Gautama this question: who succeeds in disentangling this tangle? So here tangle can brings a different meaning. So in Pali it is called jata. In another sense, we can translate, we can use the term jata means the conflict. We are having a conflict within ourselves. So that is called internal conflict. Internal conflict. And we are also having conflict because of various reasons with others, that is called external conflict. So we are having internal and external conflict. So how one can overcome these conflict within oneself and others? So in the advice Buddha has given, that when a wise man established well in virtue, develop consciousness and understanding, then as a bhikkhu, ardent and sagacious, he succeed in disentangling this tangle. So one can overcome all conflict when you apply virtuous sila or the morality. That is actually the restraining of doing any harmful action. When one restrain, so that means he protects others. And the concentration is the insight of wisdom. So as we know that these are the three-fold training or sila, samadhi, panya. So here you can see that applications of mindfulness, it is not just attaining nibbana, but beside that there are many advantages one can attain, one can achieve by applying mindfulness. So here one occasions that in the Sakkapanya Sutta, the discourse of the Sakka, questions of the Sakka, he was asking that people are willing to live with the happiness, but there is no happiness. It is because of mentality. We are entangled with such mentality like jealousy and awareness. So when these two things are in the mind, the people, even though it's still we can experience what Buddha said, even the children, they are fighting with the parents, and parents are fighting with the children. So in society we can experience that. So in that sense, Buddha said understanding the things or those the conflict, or what are the cause of conflict, that will be very helpful. So we are talking about the contemporary crisis and how we can apply about these teaching of related to mindfulness into overcome this conflict. In the when Venerable Buddhaghosa, he took advantages of this stanza and he composed Visuddhimagga, such a big, huge text. So you can see that when he talks about the virtues, it is not just the sense of restraining oneself. So when one restrained, when one concerns about his all restraint activities, that automatically he is serving, protecting others. It is very necessary that Buddha even concerned about not only the human being, but all the entire beings in the world. When Buddha said that Sabbe Satta Bhavantu Sukhitata, it is consistent, entire beings in the world. So this compassion or the loving kindness, that is the part of mindfulness meditation, and it is not focusing on one single beings, but entire beings in the world. So it is so having regular practice of mindfulness can benefit those with above mental illnesses. So in Sabbasava Sutta, in another occasion, like asava means here can be translated in many ways, but I refer to the translation given by the Venerable Thanissaro. But beside that, actually, asava can be the mental intoxications and cankers or tenants. So many different translations. So the monks, the ending of fermentation is for the one who knows and sees. So this is mindfulness. Appropriate attention. When a monk attend appropriately, unarisen formations do not arise, and arisen formations are abundant. There are fermentation to be abundant by seeing, restraining, avoiding, dispelling, developing. So these are the practices one can apply in order to understand whenever there is any conflict within oneself, and to understand the nature of that conflict and to abandon that conflict. So here last is the developing, so that is related to bhavana. Bhavana pahasabha. So bhavana is in another sense development of the mind. And then okay, like this is related to what I want to conclude. So then it can be like mindfulness meditation has been found to be somehow successful in treating people with psychosis such as borderline personality disorder and schizophrenia. And mindfulness meditation has also been shown to have real effect on structure of the brain and thickening of the cortex, etc. So certain bodily sicknesses are developed through frustrations of the body, and frustration occurs through the effort the body makes to satisfy the body, but because of certain barriers, the body cannot get the satisfactions required, which result in frustration. So under such circumstances, the modern world is now looking to the practice of Buddhist meditation to overcome these problems and to have a clear and light mind. So that is my conclusion. So thank you very much once again for giving this opportunity, and hopefully if you have any questions, so we will have such opportunity to discuss further.
Thank you very much, Venerable Pia Ratana, for reminding us that a lot of crises are actually the consequences of human actions, and that happiness is not about external world, and suffering can be erased when we really see our true nature through practicing enough of mindfulness. And now we are arriving at the discussion and Q&A session. And now we have about 15 minutes. So anyone who has question, feel free to open your microphone, introducing yourself a little bit before asking the question. Also, the audience who are watching this session virtually can type the question in the chat as well. So I will start with the first question. I see that all of the scholars here in this session talk about how we shouldn't treat mindfulness as just an event, but to adopt it in everyday life and in every moment. So the question is how we can practically immerse mindfulness in every activities, and how can all of life become a meditation? And can Professor Dr. Frank answer first, please.
Well, okay, I don't have any privileged access to ultimate truth on this, and I think whatever we say is provisional. It's our own point of view. So I speak from my experience only. I think that there are little stages or little degrees of mindfulness. If you do, as I do, mindfulness meditation in the morning, you have at least some time in your routine where you're trying to do this completely. Now, some days it's better than other days. So even in meditation itself, nothing is perfect. You know, you might have some reverie, could have been, would have been, should have been, taking you away from the moment. Or you might have some hope or some fear taking you away from the moment. But eventually your mind comes back to the present moment. So what would it be like if we would increase the degree? In other words, I don't think this is an all or none thing, mindful or not mindful, even within meditation. So it's a matter of calling your mind back to its job, calling your mind back to mindfulness. To the extent, to the degree that you can do that, then all of your life becomes a meditation.
Thank you very much. And Professor Dr. Huang Zhu Nun, how can we be mindful, like when we mind a step before taking on the trend?
So the mindfulness should be with me in every moment of my life. And also I said to you, I show you the photo of Hong Kong, and then please mind the gap, there. But it is not easy. But I try from my Vipassana teacher. He always said to me that please live here and now without attaching to your future, not attaching to your past. He always said to me, but not easy. But similar thing actually happened when Zen meditation become very popular in China. So during the Song Dynasty, around the 1100 Common Era, and Da Hui Zhongguo appeared, and he developed new kind of meditation called the Ganhua Sun, or it is called asking some paradoxical question in every day of your life. So one of the most famous question in South Korea we Zen Buddhists usually do is called the imoko, means what it is. So in your life, in every moment of your life, you should have a question. What is it? What is it? What is it? Keep doing that, then developing a questioning mind inside of you, and it will eventually explode. Then you will get the peace of your mind. So not just a sudden Buddhist meditation, but also the East Asian meditation as well, trying to have a kind of a meditative insight in every moment of our life. But for me, even though I try, but meditation is very difficult for me to do that. So I try every day my life, but not easy for me. So I'm not the good person to answer this question.
Thank you. And I will definitely practice developing the questioning mind myself. And Professor Dr. Pia Ratana, how can we be at the extreme level of mindfulness in our daily life?
So I agree with Professor that passing whatever position or whatever movement we are passing through, we have to act. We have to keep or act according to the mindfulness, so that not just doing activities without any concentration, so that any attention. So otherwise, when I want to put this on my table, that if I don't aware that it may the fall down notes. That is very simple, but in another sense, like in the form of a religious or the perspective that the things are having three characteristics that utpada or the arising is stability or the continuity and passing away. So then whatever the things that we experience, it is called like any conditional things that we are passing through, that we have to pay attention, we have to concern about, or that is the appearing, rising, and also there might be some continuity and also cessation, so the decay or vanishing of that such a particular thing. So the most of people, we like to think that that is the rising, but we don't accept about vanishing or cessation. So then suffering or the conflict arises. So then for that reason, we have to pay attention about like not like just concerning, oh, this is the mindfulness, but more than that, such a deeper understanding about the things that we are passing through. I think that very significant advice we can see within this COVID pandemic, right? If you're not aware, like I always say that don't touch your face without a mask or when you touch anything. So we that is to really make us mindful, right? Do whatever that when we drink, when we touch or anything that to why we have to wear the mask. So that if without mindfully that if we are not wearing mask, maybe coincidentally we touch our face with touching someone who is having the COVID effect. So to pass this critical situation, so always it is to our term like to pay much attention. The teachings of the Buddha very applicable to protect oneself in such a COVID pandemic, right? So then the same can apply for another like such level of the mind, even the anger or anything that can be controlled in such sense.
I listened to your presentation, Dr. Biaratana, and seeing a lot of benefits of mindfulness to mental health and also physical health as well. Can you elaborate more of the effect and how can we apply mindfulness to deal with physical illnesses in practical way?
Yeah, that is actually like nowadays, you know, that many people suffer with many physical illnesses because of like diabetics, heart attacks, and cholesterol, and those things. What we can do with mindfulness to maintain such illnesses? So we can see that most of disease comes due to imbalanced moderations of the food. So that remind us mindfulness in another sense to apply like moderating whatever actions like even eating, drinking, and whatsoever, that to be moderated to maintain it properly. This properly maintaining can be done only through the awareness or the mindfulness. So that one case that we can see. And another sense, like I would like to pay attention. You remember like 2, 3, maybe 4 years. I'm not sure that some students, 13 students, they lost in a cave in Chiang Mai or some area in a rural area, and they didn't have enough food, so anything like almost 10 days, more than 1 week. So when they came out from the cave, that they were questioning like how you could survive without any food such a long period of the time. So the answer was that their coach, the teacher who was teaching football, he was the practitioners of insight meditation. So he let his students to practice insight meditation, to concentrate even such difficult situations. So then they said that they were survived because of this practice of meditation. So that is why even such critical situation, it might be some possibility to apply this mindfulness insight meditation in to overcome such a difficulty. So they were survived. And not only this, like when I came to study at Mahachala for the first time, there was one student in my class, and she was having cancer. and the doctor said that you probably die within the 5 months. And then she found to meet our meditation master, and he advised her to practice meditation. And even after 5 years, I met her, but doctor said your life remain only for 5 months. But she started to practice inside meditation and doing moderating her daily activities according to such schedule based on meditation, so she could recover. And even as just now, even after 5 years, I met her. So then, when we talk about that is very, and another interesting point that she was a Christian, and but I mean she didn't change the religion, but still apply practice inside meditation. So that is what I mentioned. Physical illnesses also we have opportunity to apply this mindfulness meditation.
Thank you very much. And Professor Dr. Huang Zhu Nun, do you have any experience to share about the effect of mindfulness in mental physical?
So while I'm listening the answer from the assistant professor and also Dr. Frank Hoffman, I just remember, whenever I try to live in a present moment, not attached to the past, not attached to the future, I usually try not to have a very high expectation. The hope is a good thing we should follow, but we are attached to the hope. The hope will destroy us. The hope only exists in the future, not in our present moment. So in Indian, people usually say golden ages is only in the past time. Your current time is the real golden age of your own life. So if we have an expectation, high expectation, we are eager to achieve it. When we try eager to achieve it, then we are attached to it. Then eventually, if we can't make it, we are in trouble. But if we are living with a very little expectation, it doesn't mean kind of a method of living not to have any hope, but with a little expectation, then we are not attached to some kind of a high hope. Then just the little things occur to us, then we become very happy. So I think this is one of the way we can actually live in the present moment. For example, when I go to the restaurant, one of my friends usually checking SNS and Facebook and Instagram, and he had a high hope and big expectation. But his best moment was before entering into the restaurant, because he has a big expectation. But once enter inside there, everything different from the photo, and the taste of food can't match with his high hope or high expectation. So one of the way we Buddhists can practice in our daily life might be living with a little low or little expectation, and become happy whenever something happening, we become happy. So I think this is one of the way we can apply this mindful practice method in our ordinary daily life.
Just like someone say, happiness equal expectation minus reality. Dr. Frank, do you have anything to share?
Sure. I'd like to attach to this discussion a reflection of the Buddhas in the first instant, and that reflection is death can come at any time. So I'd like to attach it in two ways. One, there was a discussion by the Venerable about we are enjoying observing the arising of a phenomenon, but we don't enjoy if it's something good, and the ceasing of the phenomenon bothers us. So we only want to attach to the pleasant, okay? And then when I think about the idea of minimal hope, I think of the phrase of the Buddha, death can come at any time. And I think of Roshi Robert Aitken, a story about his life. he was a prisoner of war in Japan. According to this legend, they dug a hole for him and put a bamboo gate over the top. Every once in a while, guards would throw a scrap of food. Sometimes rats would come and eat part of it, but he was benefited by a man who threw him 2 books. One was about the poetry of Robert Blythe, and another was a Zazen training manual. He read the manual over and over, so the story goes. And he survived this incarceration by Zazen. So I thought, what would it be like to be him? A man with no hope. I connected to Doctor's comment about minimal hope. You have too many hopes, you're already lost in a cloud of reverie. So that's my attachment to the conversation. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. And now we have a few questions in the chat from our online participants. I will call the name and please open your microphone and ask our experts. So Kun Sok Lama, please open your microphone.
Hello, hello to everyone. And my question is, what thoughts or idea do we need to attach in mindfulness meditation that keep us from growing and making further progress?
So I'll repeat the question. What thoughts or ideas do we need to attach in mindfulness meditation that keep us from growing and making further progress?
So I just mentioned before one name of the discourse that Vitaka Santana Sutta. So in that sutta very clearly explained that if any thought, if you let to grow up, what will be the advantages or the disadvantages? What will happen? So if it is your anger, so the thought involved with anger, if you let this anger to grow up, what damage can happen, or what harmful activities that you can make. So for that sense, like we have to think of such thoughts or the thinking that to clarify. So that the reasons why we are called like a human being, to differentiate from other beings. So why we call as human beings, to clarify what is good from what is bad. So this clarification only can be done those who are having such mindfulness, right? Or otherwise we accept whatever thoughts come to in your mind, that we accept. So that we are given such opportunity to pay attention very carefully, that to accept only what is beneficial to oneself and also the beneficial to others. So in our saying, we have one parable, like folk saying, if you see such a poisonous snake, do not let that snake to run away, but immediately kill it. So we know that it is not the advice inside that sense. It is here poison is snake to compare the anger. If you let anger to grow up, it will damage, it will destroy yourself, and also it will destroy others. So for that reason, so we have to clarify the thought or the thinking that arises within oneself. What what thought is beneficial to oneself. So let grow up it. But this benefit to oneself means that it is damaging to others and only to beneficial to yourself. So that is not accepted. But for that reason, actually, we apply the mindfulness and also to clarify the thoughts. So usually the process of thoughts and explain in variously. But here in that particular sutta, like Vitakka Santana Sutta, it is to realize that okay, that whether the thoughts is involved with hatred, lust, hatred, delusion. So that thought we have to ignore. Any thought involved with uh, what's called generosity, non-hatred, and non-ignorance, then accept it and let it grow up. So there are several advices, and even that sutta is explaining that you are paying attention to control your bad thinking, bad thought by applying like your mental energy, but still you can't control. Then you apply your physical energy to control it. How to apply like a physical energy? You can it is sutta is explaining like biting your own teeth. It is like somehow maybe painful to yourself, but it is not painful to you, another. So this is how we can control like thinking or the thought, various thoughts to recognizing. So that for that sense we have perceptions or the observation. Many occasions Buddha was saying that that is what is really harmful to oneself. Don't try to do it for the other. So the clarifications of thoughts, so we have to apply, and what is good, let it to grow up, and what is bad, just ignore. That understanding we can make, actually we know, but some people, of course, that is not depend on individual.
Thank you so much, Dr. Huang Zhu Nun. Do you have anything to add? Okay, Dr. Frank.
Yes, I was thinking when the Venerable was speaking about likes and dislikes, and I want to connect this conversation I see about likes and dislikes to another translation of Kodana, which is irritability. So if we have to guard our gateways or ayatana and keep the mind focused on immediate awareness without wanting anything, then an avoidance of likes and dislikes in the meditation satipatthana process is very important. If we don't take care of that, if we don't take care of our mind, we will easily slip into irritability. Oh, I like this. I don't like this. Oh, my chair is too hard. Oh, my chair is too soft. And then what? And then we find it difficult to get away from these likes and dislikes once they start. So it seems to me that that's the appendix on the conversation that I would add. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question is from Kun Jyoti Kalhan Sharman. Please open your microphone.
Yes, thank you so much, and paying respect to all venerable professor and teachers. I want to ask about how mindfulness meditation can be applied for overcoming wrong views, micchaditti.
The question is how mindfulness can be applied for overcoming wrong views, like micchaditti.
นี่มีนาเป็น MC นะคะ
Please.
Okay, Venerable, like in early scriptures we can see that mindfulness, the wrong view, all the wrong views can be concluded into two as eternals and non-eternals, or eternalism and non-eternalism, or nihilism. So even though they are appearing in different terms under like 62 views, wrong views, or something else, but we can conclude into two as eternalism and nihilism, or sasatavada, uchchedavada. So here you can see that the Buddha's what Buddha has presented, but with ignoring those eternalism and nihilism. So Buddha himself we call Pachatta Veditaba. So one who could understand or realize by own experience. So to this we can see how we can apply mindfulness to understand the nature of the view or the wrong view. So there are many occasions or the discourses we can see Buddha has given such advices. So most of the view it is in somehow like what is called it based on like intellectuality or argument, right? So then in that sense like when one apply mindfulness, of course that is the right mindfulness to understand the things as they really are. So in that sense, if you accept that the eternalism, what like or the nihilism, that if you believe that or that is eternalism means like everything existed but forever, so then you never accept, you never think that or whenever changes happen within yourself that you don't accept, right? So but for when you pay the mindfulness or the to understand the real nature, then you will realize that oh, it is, I cannot claim it is as mine. There is one occasion, one Brahmin came to the Buddha and he was saying that I am in having the view of that 5 aggregates belongs to me. So then the Buddha was asking, if you say that the 5 aggregates belong to you, can you maintain your rupa, your form as you want? Of course I cannot. But in the morning time, it is my appearance like this, but in the evening it's not the same. So I cannot maintain my form. Then Buddha was asking again, like, how you could say that rupa belong to you? So that means it's not belong to you. I am having the view that it belongs to me. But if you really understand the true nature of the things, that you may feel that no, there is nothing to claim as mine, myself. So here, Michaditi, almost venerable, all the Michaditi, like Buddha was saying that whatever Michaditi, that based on Asmimana. Asmimana means I notion, right? I notion. So if you can ignore that I notion, the way to ignore the I notion, that understanding the three characteristics, as Professor mentioned, that unsatisfactoriness or the suffering, and what's called the impermanent suffering and non-self. So you build up view, wrong view, because of understanding this like oh, it is happiness and permanent belongs to me. So but if you only by applying like meditation or the mindfulness, you can overcome this I notion. So then can overcome the wrong view, most of the wrong view based on that I notion. So if we apply like understanding of the real nature of the things as they really are, so then that is the mindfulness. So that mindfulness help you, as I said, like building up what is the everything is permanent. So such people, when they build up like Uchedavad, that means like a nihilism. Oh, everything are subject to be vanished. So what you try to what you try to understand, oh, that before vanishing I should enjoy it. So then I try really hard to satisfy myself within such short period of the time. It is impossible. So then for that reason, also again, when you apply the mindfulness, of course, that is the way to overcome these two views as known as Michaditi.
Very complete answer that mindfulness allow us to see our true nature, and with that we can erase the michati. Do you have any thing to add in that regards, or you can share your own experience on how yourself erase the michati?
So I just saw that question about how to cultivate Mahametta and Mahakaruna toward our enemy group like Putin with mindfulness. That's a good question, and I like it, and not easy to answer. But I have to say, Mahametta and Mahakaruna in Chinese, Deja Debi, the quality belongs to the Lord Buddha, and Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. So in the time of a crisis, what we are living here in the modern days, I said we shouldn't have a big hope, but this is a kind of a big hope. We should develop it. But I can't think of anything other than Buddhist universal morality. When we think about other religions, Islam, Christians, their love and their kindness only goes to the neighbors within their own boundaries. But Buddhism, I have to say, could be the only religion in Asia where people talking about loving and kindness and compassion, not only within our own group, our own Buddhists, but also toward all other people. Not only other people, but also the animals and insects and anything living, anything living beings, anything we to say alive. We should have the same value, same loving and kindness and compassion toward everything. So this is high hope, but this could be the only way to solve this kind of serious confrontation as far as I'm concerned. And maybe you venerables can make some kind of way to develop easily develop that kind of a mind of equanimity. I hope you can make some kind of a way to do that.
Dr. Frank, you can answer both the questions.
Yes, I have a follow-up. I have been reading a little bit about racial hatred and trying to understand its roots. And I was assisted by an article written by a Yogacara scholar who quoted a practice from Dalai Lama's training manual called Exchanging Self for Others. And it is this I'd like to add to the conversation. Most often, our animosity to the other side comes from our inability to see things as they see it, however one-sided that is. But if we could exchange oneself for others and try that practice within Buddhism, I think we prepare the groundwork for true understanding. I give you anecdote from my real life experience. As a boy, I grew up seeing over and over again the same quotation on television. Khrushchev at the United Nations, pounding his fist on the table and saying, "We will bury you." So this was the perception that Americans of my generation got about Russia, that they will kill us all. So as a college student, I had a chance to decide my language. And I decided to study Russian for 2 years, which was the requirement for undergraduates, with a view to understanding how Russians think through their literature, through their culture, to get beyond "we will bury you" and see what is the mind, the soul, the heart of Russian people like, not in a political way. But then I thought, the real politic comes down to survival. So I live in the mystery of this question, a little like my colleague, Dr. Huang. I don't have one way to solve this for sure, but I do think the practice of exchanging self for others, whether you're speaking about racial issues or international political issues, will set the stage for you to understand. Even if we get that far, it's pretty good. It's better than outright animosity. Thank you for the question.
And now we arrived at the end of the first panel discussion because we are going to run out of time. And thank you all of the scholars today for giving such a wonderful presentation and also the discussion. And we can see the benefits of mindfulness in every area that we can apply to. And now I would like to turn over the stage to Pramaha Asira Wachiranaku, our MC.
Okay, thank you, Miss Mina. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to appreciate all the scholars for sharing their valuable inputs to all our participants by sharing your expertise and knowledge. I'm sure that our participants have learned various knowledge in the field of mindfulness by adding up your theoretical part concept. And I believe that this theoretical part can be applied into their daily lives and their education as well. So, and it was a very wonderful discussions for this morning, first panel discussion in this morning session. And we also had opportunities to listen to real life experiences from Professor Frank and also other scholars as well. So it was very wonderful. So now, without further ado, because we are running out of time, I would like to invite Assistant Professor Dr. Pramaha Sompong Kunakaro, Vice Director of IBSC, to share some thankful remarks and present our speakers, scholars with a token of appreciation and Dhamma gifts. Venerable Sir.
Okay, in the term of mindfulness, that's really necessary. That's why you can see the term, the guardian. So, in the term of mindfulness, if we talk about mindfulness in the term of religion, especially Buddhism, so you can see the term sati. Whenever you talk about the state, definitely Buddhism. But mindful is the term in general regarding the religion. So you can see when you go to the airport, mind your step, mind your head. Yes. But the forum today about the mindful practice in the term of the crisis. So so many crises presently. How many crises you can see? Political crisis, deceit. So all coming, you can see, you can observe that all coming from the human being itself. Why? What happened? Because of the presence first emphasize on develop the matter more than the mind. I went to South Korea in Iksan. I went to the markets. I observed the board, some kind of the small notice. They said, mind over matter. So I turned to the second time to see that the banner. So that's very necessary that I'm going to say that if the people emphasize on mind, so we can solve the problem, any kind of the crisis, please, even the presently, whether the COVID-19 or whether the political crisis. That's because of we emphasize on the how to train the mind. So anyway, today is very necessary that we organize the mindful practice in the term of the crisis. So we have first from the speakers who share the theories and the experience. So sometimes the mindfulness, the theory not enough. The theory not enough. So after the theory, we should practice by ourselves. Then we will know that how many steps for that. So as I said that mindfulness is a term in general, it's not only the Buddhism. I went to participate also the international conference in South Korea also. One lady from New Zealand, she said, okay, I will demonstrate about how to practice mindfulness. They're totally different from Buddhism. But she said mindfulness. She practiced by checking the body and speak louder. She said, this is the way to practice mindfulness. That means we have to be in the present moment. When you do something, then you know that what are you doing, that's the mindfulness. It doesn't matter that we have to practice strictly how many steps for that. So if the people say that mindfulness is we have to practice sitting, walking, so what's about the people walking? So that's why mindfulness in the term in the general meaning, that means we have to concentrate on the present moment, what we are doing presently. That's why today very necessary that the speaker share us about the experience, not only experience but the theory also. So on behalf of the organizer, the conference today, I would like to thank the Professor Huang Zhu Nun from the College of Buddhism, Academic Affairs, Bangkok University. The second, Professor J Hoffman from IBSC. And the third, Assistant Professor Piyalatana from Faculty of Buddhism. And also, I would like to thank all participants to take part for this function, and hopefully that after this function that we can take the theory to practice. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Assistant Professor Dr. Pramahasompong Kunakaro, Vice Director of IBSC, for giving the thankful remarks. Now I would like to invite Most Venerable to please be here in front of the stage to offer the token of appreciation or the Dhamma gifts to all our scholars. นิมนต์ครับพระอาจารย์ข้างหน้าเลยครับ I would like to invite Assistant Professor Dr. Venerable Viyaratana to receive the Dhamma gift from our Vice Director first.